So you guys want to do War Pike build that does good wound damage and good damage all in all, and you're wanting to play around with the new impulse cell? Well, I've got the build for you right after this. Don't forget to like the video, guys, and share it with some friends that are looking for a new War Pike build to help support the channel. And let's dive into this build. So for the weapon, we're using the conductor. Now this is going to give us +3 pulse, as we're going to be bonding it with the Savit weapon. On the weapon, we're going to be putting both the +3 impulse cells into it, and we're going to be using the special Savage Wellspring. And for the special, we're going to be using Savage Wellspring. Now this is going to really benefit us with this build, as this build is going to be a very, very crit heavy build. So having that up to extra 30% crit strike chance is going to really help us with the impulse synergy in this build. For the mod, I'm going with the Barbed Spearhead. You guys can change this up however you want. I like this one because it helps me get the wounds in more efficiently. If I get that dodge right off the bat when the behemoth is coming at me, that gives me an extra wound damage bonus for 8 seconds. That helps me get that initial wound up to get the damage rolling in. For the bond, we're going to go with Savit's Javelin. This is going to give us +3 pulse, and it has a chance of proccing that extra damage from the lightning boomerang effect. Now for the Omni Cell, I went with Discipline for playtesting of this build. This build should work perfectly fine with any of the Omni Cells you want. I personally wouldn't be running this build necessarily with Bastion or Tempest, but like I said, any Omni Cell should work perfectly fine. For optimal damage though, obviously Discipline is going to be the way to go, or with the Revenant Omni Cell. For the Lantern, I'm going with Skarn's Lantern simply because this build has a lack of survivability, and because I was playtesting it with Discipline, I don't want to be taking a lot of damage that I'm going to have to heal up with 50% reduced healing effect from Discipline. For the cell, we're going to be throwing a Catalyst cell in here. Now you can use this with Catalyst, you can use this with Reuse, you can use this with whichever your preference Insight cell is. Catalyst obviously for the most optimized damage with this build though. For the helmet, we're going with Dark Watch. This is going to give us +3 Cunning, and we're going to be using a +3 Berserker cell in here to help raise our core damage up. For the chest, we're going with Thrax's Shadow. This is going to give us another +3 Cunning, and then we're going to be putting a +3 Relentless cell in here. And the Relentless cell is really the key to this build because we're using an impulse build that is not going to be using movement speed to trigger impulse. Instead, we're going to be using Ether Rush and Relentless to trigger the move speed bonus off of the Ether Rush for the extra move speed, saving us from having to do some weird stuff to get extra move speed in the build. For the gloves, we're going with the Time Weaver's Dauntless. This is going to give us +3 Overpower, a nice little core damage boost there, and then we're going to be putting our other +3 Relentless cell in here. And for the boots, we're going with Time Weaver's Leggings. These are going to give us +3 Catalyst, and then we're going to be putting a +3 Berserker cell in there. Now, this is where I say you guys can use whichever Insight cell you want, but because the boots have the Catalyst hard-coded into them, you're going to have to play around with this build a bit if you want to switch that out for a different Insight cell other than Catalyst. And I feel like the best option you're going to have to switch this out is to put Stride of Thorns on there. That will give you +3 Predator and a Insight cell that you can switch to whatever you want. You're not going to have a full +6 Berserker at that point, but you're picking up 3 Predator, which will help offset that a little bit, and then you can run Etheric Attunement, Reuse, or whatever you want in your boots. For the tonic loadout, we're going to be going with a Blitz tonic, an Ether Drive tonic, and a Frenzy tonic. The Blitz tonic for the extra attack speed, help you get those wounds out there quicker. Ether Drive tonic just to keep your lantern up and give you a little bit more survivability, and then the Frenzy tonic for the just extra raw damage. Now, one thing I really want to emphasize with this build, guys, is this is a more traditional War Pike build. This is not going to be your standard just spin around in circles build. This isn't going to be your standard just get all the wounds you can on the behemoth as quick as you can wounding build. This is a true balanced original War Pike playstyle build where you're really relying on getting a wound in to get your Ether Rush up and then get your damage in and rotate back and forth between those two things. Now, if you have somebody else in the party wounding and you can get your Ether Rush from damaging the part, that'll save you some time in that process, but that is the playstyle of this build. So if you set this build up and you go in and you try it out and you're just spinning around doing just your heavy attacks, you're not going to get the real damage output of this build. And if you go in there just doing nothing but wounds, you're not really getting the full potential out of this build, but you're better off doing that than just doing the spin to win method with this build. So this is a balanced build, and you're going to have to rotate back and forth depending on if Ether Rush is up or Ether Rush is down, because you're relying on Ether Rush for your movement speed for the impulse for the damage. Now for the perk breakdown, we've got +6 Berserker. This is going to reduce our maximum hit points by 300, but after dealing damage, you're going to gain 3.5% damage for 3 seconds, and this stacks up to 10 times. Another benefit from this being a balanced War Pike build is that you're going to be using a lot of the rapid thrust attacks to get your wounds in, and when you're doing that, that's going to help build up your berserker faster, and berserker really is going to help a lot with getting those wounds on the behemoth to get that ether rush up. Then we've got +6 catalyst. This is going to give you 60% tonic effectiveness and tonic duration. This is going to really help boost your attack speed and your damage from those tonics if you're using the tonic version of this build. +6 cunning. This is going to give you 10% critical strike chance and give you 30% critical strike damage. So we're really getting the critical strike damage into the obscene amounts with this build. Between the impulse and the cunning, our critical damage is going to be off the charts with this build, and this is going to give us a little bit extra crit chance so that we're not fully reliant on that +3 pulse cell on the bottom to get our crits in. Then we've got +6 impulse. This is going to give us an additional 10% movement speed, and our crit chance is increased by 10% for every 5% movement speed. The benefits stop after you hit 50% movement speed. So this is a baseline is going to give us 20% critical strike damage, and then we're going to get another 60% from having ether rush up because of relentless. This is going to make our crits hit massively hard because we're not only getting the 20% from this baseline, we're also getting another 30% from cunning and another 60% from relentless. Then we've got the key element of this build, relentless +6. This is going to increase the duration of our ether rush by 50%. Not a huge benefit, but it's going to help us not have to bounce back and forth as much. The main thing here is increasing the effectiveness of your ether rush by 100%. Now, if you're unfamiliar with ether rush, if you wound a behemoth, you get ether rush. If you do 1500 damage to a wounded part on a behemoth, you get ether rush. Now, ether rush is a temporary effect that is going to give you 15% of the following: move speed, attack speed, damage, and stamina regeneration. So this is going to help you not only spin more because of the extra stamina regeneration, but it's also going to give you that movement speed bonus, damage bonus, and attack speed bonus. Now, this is the key part of this build, guys. Because of the +6 relentless, that 15% bonus to attack speed, move speed, stamina regeneration, and damage is going to be multiplied up to 30%. Now with that 30% movement speed, that is going to translate to 60% more crit damage because of the impulse cell. Then we're getting another 20% crit damage from impulse itself. We're getting that 30% crit damage from cunning, and that's where this build really comes together. Is relentless is giving you that move speed bonus for impulse, which is why I think War Pike is probably the best weapon to run impulse on, is because you have that baseline ability to get movement speed as part of the kit of the weapon. So you're not only getting the 30% movement speed from the ether rush and the 10% from impulse, and then up to 7.5% from reforging your repeaters, you can pretty much get almost all the way to the 100% crit damage from impulse without having to put any movement speed into your kit itself. And then our last two perks is going to be +3 overpower. This is going to give you 20% damage versus staggered behemoths. Just a nice little baseline core damage we're working into the build, because trying to get enough finesse cells on this build to get this all to come together is really where I was struggling with this build for a while. I tried to do one with adrenaline and endurance, and it just wasn't working out, especially with the mixed play style that this build requires. And then we've got +3 pulse. Every 8th hit of your weapon is a guaranteed critical strike, and that's basically in there because it's useful at +3, and we weren't getting another +6 cell into this build. You could change up the weapon if you want a different perk there. Maybe you want to go for more attack speed with the Umbral weapon, but since this is built into the weapon we're using, you can easily change this out to any other +3 perk you find beneficial. I figured getting a guaranteed crit every once in a while would probably be the best way to go with this build baseline. That, and since we already have our cunning maxed out between the chest and the helmet, it doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room in here to put a radiant weapon in. Using +3 galvanized from the frost weapon, not really beneficial. It would be if it was all the way at like +6 maybe, so you got the extra crit damage too and not just a really small amount of extra crit. So you can really play around with this. I think that going with the +3 pulse or going with the +3 assassin's frenzy off of the Riftstalker weapons probably your best way to go with this build. I hope you guys take the time to try out this build if you have access to +6 impulse already. If not, I've got some guides on the channel to help you get into Gauntlet with some buddies and get that +6 impulse. Now the damage from the impulse cell is kind of all over the place, so keep that in mind, guys. Your results may vary, and we've seen things as weird as switching one piece of armor out causing issues with the numbers coming off of impulse, even though the cell layout was completely the same. So, you know, your mileage may vary with impulse. Hopefully after they get a patch out, they can kind of get the numbers balanced out with this thing and the cell work fully how it's worded and not just kind of work here and there. but keep that in mind, guys. And another thing to keep in mind with this build is, like I've been reiterating over and over again in this build already, is you're relying on Ether Rush for that extra move speed. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Ether Rush buff, it's going to be where your character's glowing blue. You got that like Super Saiyan aura going on with your character. That's how you know you're in the Ether Rush state. To activate Ether Rush, you either need to do 1500 damage to a wounded part, or you need to activate a wound on a behemoth yourself. The best way to do that with War Pike is obviously going to be the rapid jab combo. If you're playing by yourself, one of those attacks should usually activate a wound, if not a couple more jabs after that, and you should be good to go with your Ether Rush. If you're playing with a party, though, it might take a little bit more than that, because the behemoth scaling up is also going to cause the time to wound to scale up as well. My recommendations with this build is either get a quick knockout and then try to get that wound on the behemoth, because of the overpower giving you extra damage, obviously, to your wounds too, because it's giving you flat damage increase there. Or try to get a wound off and then do your heavy attack combo by the head, just to get the behemoth staggered to get ready to get that second wound while the behemoth is on the ground. If you guys have any ideas with ways you can improve this build, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always looking for ways to improve and modify these builds and possibly put them into future versions of the build. I will try to keep updating the links in the video description down below with this build and some other variations of the build as time goes on and we have more time to play test the builds and improve upon them. So I will keep adding to that list of variations of these builds in the video description. If you guys are enjoying the build or the content here, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Dauntless and Wayfinder content coming in the near future. Really appreciate it, and all those likes really do help boost the video in the YouTube algorithm. I will be going live on Dauntless just about every Saturdays. If you guys want to come check out a live stream this week, we're going to be doing a helping the community stream. If you've got something you need some help with in Dauntless, swing on by and say hi. We'll try to give you guys a hand with whatever you guys need a hand with in the game. And if you guys are looking for an active community of friendly people to play Dauntless with, I also have a link in the video description for our Discord server. We've always got people around pretty much all the time playing Dauntless on there, and most of them are pretty helpful. Help you out trying to problem solve some issues with your build, or maybe get some help farming something like those chrono fins that everybody seems to be struggling with getting part breaks on still. If you guys are interested in some more Dauntless content, I should have a video over here for you guys, as well as a playlist underneath that with some of my other Dauntless build videos. And like always, guys, I will see you in the next video.